So I've not long got done with Parasite Eve. It was my first playthrough, and I'm hoping to share my thoughts and opinions with you today in this kind of like retro review, kind of something that I've been doing alongside my main content, filling in the gaps in between, just kind of throwing more content at you and more discussion. So I'm hoping again you can get involved in the comment section down below. So with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. As always, got you covered with timestamps down below, so if there's a certain section you want to skip to, feel free to do so, whatever floats your boat. All I ask is for you to support the channel and hit the thumbs up button. So let's get straight into it. Again, this is one of the other games that I have streamed over on the live streams. I've kind of been revisiting a few games that I've never played before, play through them for you to all to enjoy if you're present in that live stream, and then I kind of get a nice little review together here on YouTube for you to enjoy. So again, shout out to everyone that kind of came by as I was live streaming Parasite Eve. I did it throughout the month of October because I guess it's kind of Halloween, but it was the right time to kind of try it, and well, here we are. I usually kind of throw in a history with a said title. Parasite Eve, I have no history. I've never played it before. I have known about it. I've seen kind of like trademarks kind of get done by Square Enix. It's got people excited, and it turns out to be something completely different, or the main character becomes a collaboration character with Brave Exvius. But outside of that sphere, I don't have any personal experiences or attachments to it. That has, of course, changed with this playthrough being completed. So let's start off with the story, and I guess I will say spoilers to a certain degree because I feel like I need to talk about it to kind of get my point across. But the story of Parasite Eve, it's a story. It is definitely a story. It's a unique story. There's a lot to it. I think it is based on a book. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the story was all right. It was interesting. There was a lot of kind of out there things and just crazy shenanigans to kind of keep me invested, and I really didn't know what was going to happen next. There was people imploding over there. There was people turning into sludge over there. The main character turns out to have powers. I've got my cop friend that just jumps out of a helicopter and just engulfs himself in flames to save us, to give us the right ammo for a boss fight. It's really kind of like all over the place, and I guess the only bad thing about it is that maybe I didn't understand it as much as I should have. Maybe I need to play through it again, but it was a story nonetheless. What is a story without its characters? And our main character, Aya, we renamed Jenny for the playthrough. It was really funny kind of doing all the dialogue and have everyone like, Jenny, Jenny, Jenny. And that's Jenny spelled with a G-E-N because of Jen. You know, that works, right? But it was a good time. But the main character, there's not much to her, really, I guess. She's a cop. She's a cop, and that's her personality. The only kind of step above that is that how she's involved with the story and the main topic, the mitochondria of the game, and how she's related to that, her history with the kind of big boss of the game, and just the way that develops. Apart from that, she doesn't really have too much personality, I guess. I might be wrong, but I didn't sense much of it. I got a lot more personality from other characters like Dan, a bit more of a passionate father with his son, really kind of gutted that he's lost his wife, and just the way he approaches his job and the way he cares for Aya as well. Also, you have, like, I called them the Biggs and Wedge of the group. They were the guys that were in the ammo customization, the gun closet at the underneath the police station. They had good chemistry, and it was really nice to see that story kind of go a little bit and then end abruptly. And I think of that, the characters are just there. They support the story to sort of a certain degree. You've got Maida, I think I pronounce it. You got Professor Clamp, and they add to the story. He's a bit of a douchebag. I really did not like him at all, especially towards the end of the game. But the characters, I guess there's not any like standout characters. It just, again, adds to the story, and I don't really have any real complaints except maybe on my part where I may have not just invested myself as much as I should have in these characters. Okay, let's talk about the world of Parasite Eve, and this takes place in New York, I believe, and I really like the real worldness to it, if you know what I mean. It makes you feel like it could happen in our world to a certain extent. Introducing places that we are familiar with in a video game can really make the immersion just that little bit greater, I guess, in a certain aspect. And I think it did that, kind of going through Central Park and then obviously ending up at the Statue of Liberty, going into the precinct, and just the way it was presented was really nice. I was a big fan of the pre-rendered backgrounds and the depiction of New York in this game, it being Christmas Eve, and it just kind of having that overall aesthetic, going through the hospitals and it having that eerie feelingness. I know that they're going for like, what if Square Enix or Squaresoft at the time made a survival horror game? I do think that they captured it with its pre-rendered backgrounds and the way its world is presented, and I did enjoy kind of exploring through it. You kind of get those traditional RPG elements of finding chests and having random battles, and they did try, and I think to a certain extent they succeeded, having a bit of survival horror to it, but I guess it's really hard to do it in a game where there's more of a RPG random encounter system. But I didn't have any complaints. I did feel like in places it was too quiet, and even though that makes sense to a survival horror extent, it doesn't make sense because of how kick-ass the music is between those silent sections. I just wanted more music, and I think I was playing it as an RPG as opposed to a survival horror type game. And also I think there's only like 2 instances where I was a little bit like, whoa, like where they did kind of capture that element of what Resident Evil did with the dogs coming through the window or the liquor coming through the window. They just had a couple of moments like that, but apart from that, it didn't really feel survival horror-y, if that's a word we're going to go with. But overall, the world is really kind of well presented, and it does add to the game, and it's probably one of my more favorite parts of the game. So I guess it's only natural to talk about its kind of like main stakes, and that's its combat. The combat system really kind of caught me off guard in the way it was. I knew that it was an RPG slash survival horror, but I didn't know how that was going to work. And the way it worked is it works like random encounters. It's a seamless transition where the screen kind of goes black and white, you get that heartbeat, and then you get the nice kick-ass battle music going in. And essentially, I guess, like, if I was to compare it to something that's quite modern, I would say Final Fantasy VII Remake without the ability to kind of do attacks between the ATB or the AB bar or the AT bar, I can't remember what it's called in this game, but between that kind of filling up. So essentially you have free reign on your positioning, and once your bar fills up, you can shoot with your gun, and you get many guns throughout the game, offering certain kind of status elements or maybe like elemental elements that some enemies are weak against. I didn't really dive too much into there. I just wanted the gun that offered the best power and probably the best range, because I like to keep quiet from a distance. Because one gripe I had with the combat was kind of spatial awareness and where enemies are going to attack. After someone that's played Final Fantasy XIV and recently Final Fantasy XVI quite a bit, I really appreciate floor markers, and I feel like if Parasite Eve was to get a remake or a remaster, I think some kind of floor marker to where an enemy was going to attack kind of would make battles a little bit more less like unpredictable, because I would think that I got an enemy pattern down and where it's going to attack, but then some enemies have such crazy attacks, I don't know where the hit detection boxes are, and I was getting hit left, right and center sometimes, not getting an action in edgeways, and kind of getting a lot of game overs because of that. That's the only gripe I have with the combat system. The fact that you unlock these kind of the PE abilities, the Parasite Eve, I'm assuming that stands for abilities, and Liberate is incredible. Limit Break, I guess we'll call it as well. I really like these things, using haste or using slow or healing status elements. I really like the RPG elements to it. I guess it's a testament of how old the game is, and it really shows its kind of age and the way they were experimenting with its battle system. But I really liked it. I just wish, me being in the here and now, that it was a lot more modernized, but it's not. I had to accept it for all it was. And I guess if I did play it back in the day, I would have thoroughly enjoyed it and really kind of got it. But here, I just wish there was a few modern enhancements made to it to kind of make it a better experience. But the combat system really unique, and I'm really excited to see where they take it for Parasite Eve 2. whenever I decide to play the second game. I touched on it ever so briefly with combat, but you have loads of weapons and you can customize these weapons, and there's a very kind of unique kind of crafting and customization system. So there's certain parts of the game, it's mainly underneath the bottom, it's on the bottom floor of the precinct, where you can use tools to kind of take an ability from one gun, put it to another, or take something from one armor and put it to the other. And I really kind of got into this a lot more, probably after the first half of the game, maybe the last quarter of the game, where I was like, I had the G3A3 was my favorite weapon during my playthrough, and I had like the first strike, so my AB bar instantly filled up straight off the bat, so I could use haste. That really helped. I kept it at 2 ammunition because I feel like that's really like the good spot for attack power, not having it too much and not having a single shot gun. And then towards the end of the game, I had another one that kind of doubled your action, so I could do 4 hits, even though my gun was 2 hits, but it didn't reduce its power whatsoever. Or I could do 2 hits of the gun and then use a cure spell or something like that. And I really kind of got into that customization, and like having the auto potion really helped out at certain situations, but then it was being used when I didn't want to use it at a certain stage, so it's kind of like win or lose situation with that one. But I think there's so much more into, and it was mentioned to me that you can go into a new game plus, you take the weapons that you kind of renamed at the end of the game and you can do it all again and really get into the customization a little bit more. You also get bonus points as you level up. I invested pretty much all of these bonus points either into item slots early on, and then later on I just kept speeding up my ATB bar and make sure I got that speed so I can constantly attack without having to worry about wandering all over the battlefield. So on the bullet points I've got written down here, I've got side content ? That is because I went to a certain section of the game, the warehouse, which I thought was the next place to go to. I didn't even notice that Chinatown was an option, and I was diving in deep into this warehouse, the most annoying enemies in this place, to get to the bottom floor, hoping that it was going to unlock a bit more of the story. Going against this crab boss. This crab boss was getting the best of me, and it was really getting frustrating trying to figure it out. Even though the tactic was dead easy, I was at a point where I didn't have any healing items, I was low, the gun I had customized, I had to keep re-customizing it each game over, and eventually I beat it, just to find out that this was completely optional, and I unlocked a rocket launcher, I believe. So I don't know if there's more things like that in the game that I may have missed in this playthrough, but I guess for the day and age of the game being released, it had a decent selection of side content. Optional bosses are always good for cool unlocks of guns that you might want to use, but me going through that warehouse has made me not want to venture off the beaten path whatsoever in Parasite Eve. And I guess there you have it. That is my experience with Parasite Eve. I enjoyed it. I'm excited to dive into the second game, and I was so tempted to dive into the second game straight away. But I think I'm going to let things kind of sit and see what your guys' thoughts and opinions are. Maybe you got some suggestions how I can tackle the second game. Maybe I should go back through the first game with the new game plus. I'm excited to see what you guys tell me in the comments section below, or even your thoughts and opinions on Parasite Eve as well. Very interested to hear those. But I thank you for watching. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell so you're notified of that content, and of course getting involved in the comment section below. All I've got left to say is thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.